If you use GitHub on a daily basis, this video is for you. Today I'm going to be showing you 10 things you did not know about the GitHub CLI tool. If you're curious about how you can enhance your developer productivity, or you just want to learn more about the GitHub CLI, stick around. This is going to be a really cool video. As usual, my name is Bassem, and this is Glitch. Let's dig right in. So for those who don't know, the GitHub CLI is an extension of the github.com product. It brings in a lot of the different features that you used to do in the browser to your terminal. I work in my terminal most of the time, if not all of the time, and I really hate the context switching between my terminal, my text editor, and my browser. And if I had a way for me to merge pull requests or even create them directly from the command line, I would jump on the opportunity to use a tool like that. And GitHub CLI does exactly this. This is not going to be an introduction to the tool. You can do that on your own. It's pretty easy. You can install it on Mac, Windows, or any Linux distribution. And the documentation does a pretty nice job at explaining all of the different features that you have and the different things that you can do with this tool. If you go to the website, there's a pretty neat documentation that covers a lot of the different use cases and different scenarios. What I'm going to be doing in this video is I'm going to be showing you 10 things that you probably might not find right away in the documentation. And I'm going to be showing you some aliases to automate a few things. I'm going to be showing you how you can use the GitHub CLI to speed up and enhance your developer productivity. So let's jump to the first one. At number 10, we have Hub. Hub is an extension to the command line Git. It's a wrapper to Git, basically. And it's a predecessor of GitHub CLI. Both of these projects are independent and they have no relationship to each other than the fact that the maintainer of Hub is also a software engineer at GitHub, and he's currently leading the effort on building GitHub CLI. Hub has existed for almost a decade. It continues to exist independently of GitHub CLI, and it will continue to be maintained. Hub offers certain features that are not available off the shelf with the GitHub CLI, although you can build aliases and extensions and maybe even some custom scripting to have those implemented. I'm not going to go into a comparison between GitHub CLI and Hub. I think that's probably a topic for another video. You are free to decide whichever tool serves you better. I wanted to say that I'm going to be dropping the links for the GitHub CLI and the Hub, as well as the open source repository where Hub is being maintained, in the description below. At number 9, you can authenticate the GitHub CLI to your github.com account using a one-liner. And this is particularly useful because if you're trying to do some form of automation and non-interactive script running, or you have some pipelines that you want to run and you want to use GitHub CLI in them, you want to use it in a non-interactive mode. And the way you would achieve this is by creating a personal access token by going to your profile, and then jumping to the settings, and then going to the developer settings page. And here you can jump to personal access token, and then you can click on generate a new token. You can give this token a name, glich.stream all, and then you can specify an expiry date for this token. And you can specify which scopes you would like to grant this token. I highly advise you not to grant it all of the scopes possible. You want to keep the scope as minimal as you can, and then you would increase those as necessary. But for the purposes of this demo, I'm going to generate a token that has all of the different permissions. Now, after you have copied this token, you need to store it in a file. So I'm going to go to my home directory, and I'm going to create a new file called .token, and then I'm going to add this token to this file and save it. And once that is done, I'm going to be using this to authenticate. So the normal behavior for GHCLI's authentication mode is by saying ghauth login, and then you will prompt it to select where you want to authenticate, what type of protocol you would like to use for Git operations, and then you can log in either with the browser or you can paste an authentication token, which is the personal access token. But right now, you can also do this with a one-liner, and the command looks as follows. You can specify with token, and then you can pass the token from the file. And you can see here GH, or the GitHub CLI, has authenticated silently to github.com. We can verify this by invoking the command ghauth status, and with this we verify that we are already logged in. and we can run the different operations using the CLI tool now. At number 8, we have a really cool feature that allows you to create a permanent link for a specific line of code in any file in your repository, which then you can share with a colleague of yours or the rest of the team to point out a certain thing in your code base. First of all, to demonstrate this, let's create a fork of the CLI project. I already have the fork in place, but I want to clone this project locally. Once we have the repository downloaded, we can have a look inside the folder. And let's say I am working inside the file, I don't know, wix.json, and I'm on line 25, and I want to share a reference or a link to this line. I can simply say gh browse wix.json line 25 and no browser because I'm running in a container. So this will spit out a link. But before it does that, it will ask me to which repository do I want to point to, and I'm going to point in this case to my fork. And then I have the link which I can open in my browser, and you can see here it directly points to the line number 25 as needed. At number 7, we have a really cool feature which allows us to synchronize two repositories, one downstream, one upstream, especially when there is a drift between them. This feature is super important if you are maintaining a fork, but you'd also like to fetch all of the upstream changes and merge them with your fork without pushing your downstream changes in your fork to the main parent repository. Now let's demonstrate this with the CLI tool. So I've already created a fork for this repository in my own GitHub account. You can see here this is the fork, and you can see right now that this branch is even with CLI trunk, which is coming from the GitHub CLI repository. Now let's introduce a change in my fork. So I'm gonna attempt to remove the docs, and then I'm gonna commit the changes and call it a drift, and then I'm gonna push these changes up to GitHub, right? And I pushed the changes to my fork, and you can see here now the docs folder is gone from GitHub, and you see here that my main branch or my trunk is one commit ahead of CLI trunk or the GitHub CLI repository, right? The upstream. Now, if I want to resync these two repos, I can say gh repo sync, and then I specify the repository, which is my fork, right? My copy, and then I say force, because now I don't want to do a fast forward type of sync. I want the changes I introduced to be gone from this sync, right? So right now you can see that this sync has happened, and if I refresh the page over here, you'll see that my trunk is now in sync with the upstream trunk, and the docs folder is back. Now locally, of course, the docs folder will not be back, because now while the version of this repository on github.com is up to date and in sync, my local copy is not. And now if I want to make sure that my local copy is also in sync, I will need to fetch basically all of my branches. And what I need to do then is do a hard reset to the origin trunk version. And by doing this, I will get back my changes. So this is a quick and easy way to keep two repositories in sync. This is a really cool feature because it doesn't have to be only between a repository and a fork. The sync can happen in between two separate non-related repositories as well. And this is a very cool way if you want to automate changes, if you want to move changes from one repository to another via automation, you could rely on this command or feature to do so. At number 6, I really love how this tool is extensible, and you can extend it in two ways. Right now, I'm going to be discussing aliases, and I'm going to be showing you how you can create an alias that will basically add my team as a reviewer to a pull request automatically. This might not be necessary if you have if you are using code owners and you assign automatic reviewers to your PRs, but in certain cases, you might want to assign a very specific team to a certain PR continuously without using code owners, and you want to do that via an alias. This is just for demonstration purposes, so let's dig right in. So first of all, I'm going to create a new branch. I'm going to call this branch link changes, and then I am gonna introduce some changes, for example, to the README file. I'm gonna add a couple of lines here. I'm gonna save this change, and then I'm gonna add and commit the changes, right? And then I'm gonna push this branch to my github.com, and then I'm gonna say git ghpr create, which will create a pull request from this branch, and I'm gonna create it on my fork, of course. And then I'm gonna say, I'm gonna give it a title, update README and contributions. I'm gonna keep the body of the PR empty, and I'm gonna submit it. And then if I go to the browser and show you this pull request, you can see here that it has currently no reviewers and it has no one assigned to it. So let's change that over here. And I can do that with gh_alias set team review, and then I can enter the command in between the double quotes, and the command is going to be like pr edit add reviewer, and I'm going to enter my second account in this case, and then I'm going to add another parameter, which is add assignee, and I'm going to assign the pull request to myself. And as soon as I hit enter, the alias has been added, and then I can trigger it by saying gh team review, and as you can see here, I don't have to enter any other parameter. And oops, seems I have a mistake here, so it's actually assignee double E. Oops, sorry about that. Good. So we can maybe show another feature how you can edit an alias. You can do it the same exact command, and when you do that and the alias already exists, it will update it. So in this case, it shows me the difference. This was the previous one and this is the new one. And again, I'm gonna call it one more time. And once that is done, I will get a link to my pull request. And if I go to the page, you can see here that the reviewer has been assigned to link, and the assignee is currently myself, or my second test account. This is basically how you can set aliases and how you can manage them. You can also say gh_alias list to get a list of all of the aliases that are available for you or that you have created yourself. And this is a really cool feature that allows you to extend this utility way beyond its initial design. And one of my favorite features about the GH CLI tool is the ability to call and handle responses from our REST and GraphQL APIs. It's a really powerful feature because it takes away all the pain of crafting curl requests or having to build up your collection in Postman or Insomnia or wherever it is, and then just tweaking parameters. You can immediately call any API endpoint right away from your terminal and then just deal with the responses. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to be using the API that will allow me to fetch the list of starred repositories for a given user. So for example, on GitHub, you can go to any repository and click on the star button for that repo, and then it will become part of your starred repositories list. I'm gonna be calling an API that will fetch this list of starred repositories for my given user, and I can do this via GH API, and then I can specify the verb as well as the endpoint. And here I am replacing the placeholder for user with my account name, and then I can also specify how many items I would like returned per page. And obviously I received the JSON response as expected. So it will be an array of objects, and each object will be basically one of my starred repositories. And the way I can handle this better is by adding the -q parameter, which will allow me to use the JQ syntax basically to filter the response. And I'm using it here to say that from the array that is returned, I would only want the full name to be outputted per item in this array. And if I call the API again, you can see here that it only returns the full name basically, which is the owner plus repository name of the top 5 starred repositories in my list. And obviously I can change this per page up to, I think 30, if I'm not mistaken, the limit, or maybe 100. I forgot. Probably 100. I'm going to change this now to 15 just to demonstrate. And you can see here that I got the list of 15 repositories. The nice thing and really awesome thing about this tool is also its ability to handle pagination. So instead of specifying how many I want per page, I can say here paginate, and the tool will basically crawl through all of the different pages until it fetches all of the results that are available to fetch. I'm not going to run this now because I have around 702 repositories in my start list. So this is going to take some time. I'm probably going to exhaust my API rate limit with this call. So I'm going to avoid it at this point. But I just wanted to quickly demonstrate the power of the API command in this tool. Another related but also super cool feature is that you can run GraphQL queries right from your terminal. This is super great because GraphQL is really, really powerful. It's the latest version of the GitHub APIs, and you could do a ton of amazing things with it instead of just fighting with REST endpoints and fetching limited resources. With GraphQL, you can do so much. And I'm going to show you right now how you can fetch the list of users and their email addresses belonging to a given organization. And we can do that with, I've already written the query and put it in a file. So we're just going to have a quick look at it. And without doing too much dissection, just basically going through an organization, and we're fetching the first 100 members. With a given first 100 members, and then we're returning the total count, and then we are expanding each user to return their username, email address, and verified domain emails if they exist, and we're also returning some the cursor basically, which allows us to paginate. And the way we would run this query basically is by, first of all, let me copy it into my clipboard. And the next thing is I'm going to do is GHAPI GraphQL this time, and then I'm going to pass the paginate parameter because I want it to handle pagination for me. And then I'm going to pass the organization name as a variable, and then I'm going to pass the query. And the nice thing is that this tool really handles well multi-line strings. So I can just simply paste the query over here, and yeah, the tool will handle it, and it will just return the response. And it is exactly what we expected. It has returned my first account with my public email address, and the second one is the second account belonging to this organization, no email because it doesn't have a public email address associated with this account, because I don't have a public email address associated with the account. And this is exactly what we expected. Another really cool feature of this CLI tool is its ability and compatibility with GitHub Enterprise Server. So I'm pretty sure most of the audience watching today are familiar with github.com, but GitHub also offers a GitHub Enterprise Server, which is an appliance that you can install on-premise, and it's usually used by large enterprises who do not want to put their code base or basically use github.com for whatever reason. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to show you an instance of GitHub Enterprise Server. And I have already an account on it, which I'm going to authenticate to right now. I'm trying to remember my password. And GitHub Enterprise Server pretty much looks like github.com, with the exception that it has its own set of features. And you can see here that this is not .com because it doesn't have anything of the .com stuff. This is a private instance, and now you can pretty much authenticate your GitHub CLI with your GitHub Enterprise Server. And the way you would do that is, first of all, I have the host name stored in a file here because I do not want to expose it. And the way you would do it is gh-auth login -h. And let's pass the host name value, and then again I have a personal access token also stored in my .token file, and you can pass this with token, and then you can just provide the location for the token file, and then I can say GitHub auth status to check whether I am authenticated, and you can see here I am logged into github.com, but I'm also logged into my GitHub Enterprise Server appliance or instance, and now I can execute operations on either one of them. And now we come down to the last two awesome features of the GitHub CLI tool. And this one is also related to extensibility, and it is the extensions feature. You can create your own extensions, or you can use some that have been created already. I'm going to show you how you can do that very quickly. So if you run gh extensions, it will give you the manual or the help page for it. You can create, install, list, remove, or upgrade extensions. Now you will ask, where can I find some of these extensions? And it's quite easy. You go to github.com and then you can search for gh extensions, if I'm not mistaken, and you can specify all of GitHub. And I think there's a topic that's currently being used to identify extensions. So if you click on this topic, you will find all of the different GitHub extensions that have been created. Some of them are really, really awesome. And there's also one by yours truly, which is related to GitHub apps, if you feel like this is relevant for you. But the extensions I want to demonstrate today is this one, the GH graph. I think it's a really cool one. And it shows you your contribution graph in the terminal. And the way we would go about this is by installing it as such. You can just copy this here and your terminal, and then the extension will be installed in your GitHub or GH configuration folder. Obviously, this folder can be configured. And then going back to the manual, I think the way we would call it is by saying GH graph. And just like aliases, extensions behave in exactly the same way. They might take some extra parameters, but yeah, it really depends on what the author of that extension intended with it. So let's run it and see my contribution graph. Wow, it looks pretty empty. But yeah, this is because I'm using a test account and it doesn't have a lot of contributions to it. So this looks really cool. This is one of the extensions that is available in the marketplace, and there's plenty more. Now, the way you would go about creating an extension is by creating a public repository. First of all, it has to be public. And the second of all, you need to have a file that is an executable. It doesn't matter what that executable is written with. It could be Python, whatever, but it has to be an executable that starts with gh dash. Now, after the dash, you can have your extension's name, which will be used as the alias, basically. So you can see here, I called it with gh graph. Yeah, that's basically the first part, and then the second part of the file. And if I go into the file here, you can see that this is a simple bash script that yeah, basically calls the APIs and fetches the contributions for that given user, and then it shows a visual representation of these contributions. And that's about it. Maybe I will do another video to show you how you can create your own extensions in much more detail, but for now we're gonna stick to this. And finally, the last and most awesome part about GitHub CLI tool is the fact that we can use it within actions. And in this repository right here, I'm gonna go into the .github folder /workflows. And you will see here that I have a couple of workflows. I'm gonna open this one so that I can show you what's inside of it. And you can see here I have a very basic workflow that is triggered manually. And then it has a couple of steps. It will check out the repository, and then the next step, it will authenticate with the option I showed you right at the beginning of this video. And then it's gonna fetch the list of issues for this given repository. Of course, the GitHub token is not a general purpose, widely scoped token. The scope of this one is simply the boundaries of the repositories that we are running this workflow in. And the way we can trigger this workflow is also from the CLI. We can say gh workflow run and then provide the workflow name. And then you can see here that an event has been dispatched or triggered. And then if I want to watch what happens with this workflow, I can say gh run watch, and then it will provide me with the list of currently running workflows, and then I can see what's really happening instead of me jumping to the browser as well. Also, part of the really cool features of the GitHub CLI is that you really don't have to do any more context switching unless you really have to. So now with this run complete, I'm going to show you the outcome of these in the browser itself. So I'm going to go to the Actions tab, and if I click on the latest workflow run using the GitHub CLI in a workflow, if I click on this one, you will see that all of the steps ran successfully. And if I expand the Run GitHub CLI, you will see here that it has retrieved the list of issues that I have in the repository. And for us to really confirm it, I'm gonna go to this tab right here, which shows that I have one sample issue which has an empty body, and it was created around 9 minutes ago. Well, this is it for this video. I hope I was able to demonstrate some of the interesting use cases of the GitHub CLI tool. If you use github.com or GitHub Enterprise Server on a daily basis, you might want to consider adopting it because it's a great productivity booster, especially if you find your way around all of the stuff that comes off the shelf, and if you build some really nice aliases and probably adopt some cool extensions. If you like this video and you like my content in general, it would really mean a lot to me if you like and subscribe to this channel. Next week, I have a really awesome fireside chat with a brilliant engineer, and we're going to be talking about the transition from senior engineering to engineering management. It's a topic that causes a huge crisis for a lot of the engineers who are going through the transition, because some of them want to stay hands-on and they really don't think that jumping to engineering management is the next best thing for them. But some of them are already prepared and they have been groomed properly. So we're going to talk about all of these things. This fireside chat is going to be published Sunday evening CT time, Sunday morning USA time. I am also preparing a full course on CI/CD and GitHub Actions. It's going to be packed with a lot of awesome information. I'm going to be releasing this course gradually in this channel for free throughout the upcoming few weeks. And again, don't forget to subscribe to get access to all of this awesome material whenever it has been made available for you. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time.